Joining us now in Studio B is the voice of the St. Mary's Gales to discuss St. Mary's face and many other important things. Alex Jensen.
The only good thing about St. Mary's.
Another St. Mary's face right here.
Yes,
a couple St. Mary's faces.
It is a St. Mary's face, but you're a smiling St. Mary's face.
And you guys got my gnome. I love to see my gnome here on set.
Gnome,
no, yeah, anytime.
We appreciate the gnome.
Anytime, yeah. That's a gift from all of us in Moraga.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a one-man show, I'll just put it that way.
Now, I should warn you, if St. Mary's beats BYU tonight, we might throw it off the top of the building.
Well, then I might just have to take it back.
Re-gift it.
Hey, you should be smiling because the Gales have won 6 straight regular season matchups against BYU. What is it about St. Mary's and Randy Bennett coach teams that are not just hard for BYU, but basically every team in the West Coast Conference?
Well, I think you're looking at a really good offensive coach, first of all. I mean, Randy Bennett understands how to adjust to his personnel, whether it be Patty Mills or Matthew Dellavedova or Emmett Narr, or Joe Rehan or Tommy Kuzi running point guard. They find a way to produce offensively. And one thing that they've done, I think, in this matchup that's allowed them to have the upper hand in the last few years is they've been able to control the tempo of these games. I mean, BYU, last time I can remember BYU really controlling the tempo in a regular season game. Now, we saw it in Vegas last year. But in a regular season game was when Kyle Collinsworth was at the top of that 1-3-1 zone and the Cougars were able to get out and run. And when they get out and run here, you're in big trouble. So, Joe Rehan was really good at controlling the tempo, obviously, last year with the 3 or 4 seniors. This year we'll see. These guys haven't been in many environments like this. I mean, New Mexico State was one of them, have not played at Gonzaga yet, so we'll see. But in terms of St. Mary's against BYU, I think controlling the tempo has been the key because BYU wants to get up and down. And for the most part, this year you'll see a little bit more transition from the Gales because they have the athletes, but St. Mary's wants to slow it down. And over the last couple of years, they've been, for the most part, half-court games.
Let's rewind to the offseason. The big 3 leave.
Big 3.
In Narr and Hermanson and Landale, okay? They leave and we're like, oh, BYU's going to be second. We're celebrating the non-Gonzaga league title already. Then San Francisco emerges as this tremendous team. They were pretty good, but became really good. And then St. Mary's kind of reloaded, and Jordan Ford took this huge leap forward. So how is this edition of the Gales team similar and different to last year's?
Well, I think the difference is there's much more athleticism. I mean, it's been a long time since I can remember someone like Malik Fitz in a Gale uniform.
Yeah, he's a game changer.
He really is. I mean, he's got an NBA type of body. He's 6'8", over 230. Finally, someone that can match up with Yoli Childs. Tanner Krebs isn't playing out of position anymore, so he's able to slide in there. So a much quicker team. They're going to push the tempo a little bit more. And Jordan Ford is as unstoppable in the open court as you can get, and as unguardable of a player. And that's not hyperbole. As unguardable of a player in a Gale uniform that I've seen in my time at St. Mary's. I mean,
that's saying a lot at the point guard position.
It really is. But I mean, he just has that thing on a string all the time, man. I mean, his handle is ridiculous. And it's also not hyperbole to say he's a little bit like Steph Curry.
Yes, he caters his game to play like Steph Curry.
He really does. And if you remember the last couple of years, he wore number 30. But I mean, Isaiah Wright is one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. I mean, he made him fall over 2 or 3 times in that Saturday game against San Diego. So I think the biggest difference is the athleticism between the last few years and this year. Where it stays the same is you're going to see the same type of offensive sets. I mean, a lot of high ball screens, a lot of 5-1 ball screens, and they're going to try and make plays off of there. Now, what's much different and what's been a lot of fun to kind of watch is, I mean, this is a program the last few years that have been in the top of the league in assists per game. Now they're 9th. So they're making a lot of plays off the dribble.
Yeah, kind of odd. They've been watching James Harden a lot.
Yeah, James Harden thinks that's amazing, man.
Right, but if you see some of these plays, I mean, they have the ability to kind of break you down off the dribble, and they've got the ability, like you see here with Jordan Ford. This is a different defensive club as well. They're going to press you a little bit more. They're going to force more turnovers. We were talking about it off air. I mean, in the past, with those Joe Rehan, Dane Pinot type of teams, right? They're mostly just standing in front of you, really forcing you to take those contested shots. I think that that philosophy is still there, but these teams are going to take a few more chances because of the athletes they have and because of their ability in transition.
We discussed what a win and a loss would mean for BYU tonight. A loss drops the Cougars to 4-3, and you would think largely out of finishing in the top 3, at least definitely not trending that way. However, a win kind of keeps them in that conversation. What would a win and, in contrast, a loss mean for St. Mary's tonight as far as the West Coast Conference goes?
Well, I think for this team, and especially talking about earlier in the season and carry it through to now, because this is a team that not only lost over 60% of its scoring, more importantly, they lost over 60% of their minutes played from last year. I mean, Jordan Ford and Tanner Krebs are the only guys that have played a starting or significant role really in the top 6 or 7 under Randy Bennett. So I think it's all about confidence. You know, I mean, the Gales away from home have not been great. They're, I think, 3-5.
Yeah, BYU knows about that, Alex. 2-7.
Well, they're 3-5 away from McEwen Pavilion this year. And, you know, they got thumped by Utah State. I think that was a bit of an eye-opener to them. Every other game they've pretty much been in. So if this game does end up being close, which I think if St. Mary's going to win, it will be a close game because of how good BYU is in the Marriott Center, that's going to have a lot to do with their confidence because every single one of their wins this year, guys, have come by double digits.
Wow.
And 6 of their 7 losses have come by 6 or less points. So
Okay.
with a young and more inexperienced team, I think the confidence is fragile. So a win boosts their confidence a little bit. A loss, and maybe I don't want to say they're scratching their heads, but, you know, we can't get it done away from, you know, it's just
The
it's a
rhetoric
big
remains
confidence
the same.
thing. Exactly. Yeah. And, I mean, you guys know how big confidence is in sports in general.
Do you think home court's the difference for BYU tonight? Because we've talked about how good BYU's been at home, 9-1, only lost to Houston, beaten Utah State, but not a lot of teams in the top 100 there. Yet on the road, BYU's really struggled. Lost by 22 at St. Mary's, 19 at San Francisco. Do you expect this to be a close game tonight?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Again, I just said, I mean, if St. Mary's wins this game, I think it's going to be a close game. We've seen what Utah State's a good team, man. I mean, I don't think our guys are ready for that in Vegas with Utah State. But they came in here and BYU ran them out of the gym in the first half. And the only loss BYU has had here is Houston, who was one of the last teams to lose a game. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's, at least to this point in the year, BYU's a different animal here in Provo. And they always have been, really. They're a different animal here in Provo. They're really tough here in Provo as opposed to on the road. Now, I mean, in years past, obviously, we've seen them get it done on the road as well. They've won at Gonzaga, and they won at St. Mary's with Eric Mika. Both really tough places to win. The Hilltop's been tough for a lot of teams, and they lost their first game, on the Hilltop this year.
In the league, yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, there's no doubt about it. The home crowd feeds their transition. The style of ball that BYU plays, I think, has a lot to do with momentum, and I think the crowd really helps them there. And I think playing it at elevation also helps them as well.
He's the best thing that St. Mary's has going for him, the voice of the Gales, Alex Jensen, in Studio B.
In our opinion.
Right now, is San Francisco the second best team in the league?
I think right now you have to say yes, but I'll tell you what, I didn't come away from the game that the Gales played on the Hilltop thinking that San Francisco is for sure a more talented team.
It went down to the wire.
It did go down to the wire. Now, St. Mary's did not play well in the first half of that game. I mean, I remember the tip. The opening tip comes back to Tommy Kuzi, and very un-St. Mary's-like, right? Throws it away. He thinks Jordan Ford's going to head into the front court. Or no, he thinks Jordan Ford's going to stay in the back court and collect the pass. He throws it behind him, turnover. It was a bad way to start that game, and it kind of rolled downhill from there. The Gales came back from down 13 or 15 to tie the game in the second half. But to answer your question, San Francisco struggled on the road. I mean, they barely escaped Stockton. We know how tough Stockton is.
1 point win.
1 point win. They needed a last-second shot from Frankie Ferrari to beat the Waves in Malibu. And they still have to play in Moraga, in Spokane, and here, as well as at San Diego. San Diego's, they've got some depth issues, but those 4 seniors are still, I mean, they give the Toreros a chance on any night. So I think right now, yeah, San Francisco is the second best team in the league, but I really don't think that the gap between 2 and 3 and 2 and 4 and even 2 and 5 is what it has been in the last handful of years.
What sticks out about BYU now that, these two have matched up 19 days ago, and here we are in round 2 already?
Well, for my money, I mean, I think TJ Haws is the most important cover when you talk about BYU. That dude is a baller. I mean, he's taking
Ginger Mamba.
The Ginger Mamba. Wow, is that really something?
That's a thing.
That's what we call him. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome. I mean, it's a great nickname. It is. It really is. But I mean, he has the ability to make other guys better. And I think that's what makes him so dangerous. In the game in Moraga, he went for 1 assist and 5 turnovers. I think if you can turn him into a more one-dimensional player, then you take the head off that snake a little bit, because he can really score. I mean, he can score and he can play make, right? He can make other guys better. But if he's not able to make other guys better, if you take that element away from him, then I think BYU becomes a little bit more one-dimensional in terms of making plays individually, which he could do and which Yoli Childs can do. But if you take away the driving kick, if you take away the other things that TJ Haws is able to do, the lobs to a guy like Gavin Baxter, I mean, he has the ability to make those other guys better. And for me, that's the main cover when you talk about BYU. And the 1-2 punch, I mean, listen, the 1-2 punch is as good as there is in the West Coast Conference with TJ Haws and Yoli Childs. But again, if you can take away those secondary guys, it starts with TJ Haws being able to play make.
Alex, great stuff, man. I'd love to sign my St. Mary's face picture for you. If you
Well, I was hoping to get a better quality, maybe a cardstock.
Well, we like you, but we probably aren't going to put a St. Mary's anything on our flag here, which we typically do. So
We've got the gnome on.
The gnome's enough, man.
I like
exactly.
The gnome is awesome, and I have an emotional reaction 2 ways when I see it too. So that always gets me going.
Mine's only one. The only thing, I mean, I was hoping maybe a mouthpiece in there somewhere.
Yes, and like a armband.
An armband, yeah, the whole deal. He was actually in L.A. when we played LMU. He was down there playing I think the Cavs were playing the Lakers the next day, and he came out to the game. So great dude. I mean, for as good of a player as he is and was, even better guy.
BYU fans, I'm sure, love him for what he did in Provo.
Yeah. Well, I actually said this on the radio yesterday.
Bring that up.
Yeah, I said this on the radio yesterday. If he was a Cougar, they would love it. I mean, it was
absolutely
right. I mean, he's the type of guy you hate to play against.
Yes.
But if he's one of your guys, I mean, that's why his jersey's in the rafters in McEwen Pavilion.
Yeah.
Career salary over under $25 million.
For Matthew Dellavedova?
Yeah.
Over.
He signed a $36 million deal with the Bucks.
Over 31.2 right now.
There you go.
That's more than Jimmer, and that's just not cool.
Here, Alex, I'm going to sign this so you can go home and shred it. Okay?
Shred it. I'm hanging it up, man. It's going in a frame.
Listen, this relationship is unique in that he has nothing to dislike. We love Alex.
We love Alex. That's true. We love Alex.
Okay, here you go.
Look at that, man. Look at this, everybody. Which camera is it?
Right here.
Right here?
Yeah.
Well, look at that. It's going on my wall.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, fellas.
He'll be like, who's that?
Oh, my goodness.
Thanks, Alex. We'll see you tonight.
Great to have you,
Thanks,
man.
guys.